Hey, welcome back to another Black City coffee vlog. In this video, I wanted to talk about roast stages. So what the coffee goes through from raw to roasted. I wanted to share that with you guys because Mill City, last time we talked about this, or if you didn't know, I took a course with Mill City Roasters. They sent this in a gift box, class box, and it's basically vials, glass vials of all the stages, the relevant stages that coffee goes through when it's going from green to roasted. And then different levels of roasting so that you could see. So during class we didn't really talk about it much, like taking these out. So I thought, dude, these are so beautiful. And shout out to Mill City. Some of you people are saying like Alio Bullet 1000% or something. Well, Mill City Roasters 1000%, 1001%. All right, silly. Tribalism is sometimes really good, and sometimes tribalism is sometimes kind of silly. I wanted to take these and make some content with it because like it would be a waste not to. They're so pretty. They're numbered. They're right there, you know, waiting to be talked about. I think what's important, why you would need to know the different roast levels, is to start expanding your palate. Before I started to get into specialty grade coffee, it was all about just like dark roasted, and I thought that dark meant strong, meant better. A very primal kind of like cavewoman way of thinking about things, sort of black and white, and not really willing to do anything outside of that. You know, sometimes we get so emotionally attached to certain things that we get attached to, and we're not willing to just broaden our horizons a little bit or open our minds a little bit. And I think this sort of thinking can lead you into some really troubled and dangerous ideas where this is the way it has to be all the time, every time. I've certainly no stranger to that, right? I come from like a purist sort of background with coffee, but coffee's teaching me to be not inclusive, but it's like a politically correct term, which is annoying, to be like just open-minded, creative, innovative, things like this. So I feel like I'm not loosening my belief system just because of trend or whatever. It's because I truly feel that in order to become creative and innovative and completely unique as a roaster, I need to allow things to evolve and change. And it's sometimes really scary to let things evolve and change. It becomes really like, well, what is true? What is the truth? And you can get really existential about it. And I don't think it has to be this way. And I think that's why there's a barrier with like wine and whiskey, is because, oh, this is the way, you know? I don't want to be that way. Sometimes I probably do come off like that, like, Folgers, Starbucks. But I find myself evolving and changing, and like I've always said that, you know, respect given to Folgers and Starbucks, that's just what it was. It's what it had to be at that time, and there should be no hate towards it, for sure. We can have our preferences, but definitely this weird sort of alienating, isolating tribalism that we sometimes create with those concepts is kind of dangerous. So let's talk about these things here. So let's talk about what coffee goes through when it gets roasted. When I receive the coffee, it's green or raw. Okay, that's what you'll find it. And I'm going to take away these and kind of move through them one by one. Let's talk about this green. So you can see it's kind of small, right? And in a coffee cherry, this is how they are. So these little seeds will be like this. Whoop. Inside of a coffee cherry. Now, there's still more things that actually surround it in the coffee, but after it's basically processed and either washed or dry or natural or honey processed or something like that, I'm not going to get into that today, but these are washed. You can kind of tell because they're green. They don't have a lot of like orangey, brown or tanner hues to it. If you have a natural coffee, that's probably what it would look like. So these are washed for sure. This is what a washed coffee looks like. They've used water to wash away all of the extra stuff that comes with the coffee cherry. So this is how I receive coffee. This is typically what it looks like. Now, I'm actually using MillCity's grading, what do you call it, like a grading placemat. And they can they actually sort and see if there's any defects in the coffee, like little holes, little chips, damage. If I look at this coffee, it's actually quite perfect. There's nothing wrong with it. There's no weird like holes in it or chipped or broken or anything like that, any mold, anything weird like that. So this is a very high quality specialty grade coffee that's been sorted and graded correctly. So we'll put this back. After you charge the beans in the machine, right, they start to absorb heat. So this is what they look like when they start absorbing heat. So you could see some of that green if we compare it. It's starting to like kind of wrinkle. This is a very smooth kind of shiny surface. It's getting kind of wrinkly. And you can see it's drying out. So we're basically in the drying phase. We're trying to go from this green to yellow. Okay, so we're absorbing heat all the while. And now we're getting to like this stage. So this is what I would call and yellow. Okay, so when you're roasting, this is what I'm looking for. I'm looking for this stage right here, and this color will vary upon the bean, upon how you call it. Like, calling yellow is subjective. There are some guidelines about how you call yellow, about, you know, okay, if I'm roasting this certain coffee and I want this sort of development, I probably want to hit yellow at a certain time, right? So when you're roasting, that's something to look out for. This kind of has like a red hue to it, to me, as well. And it also depends on your light, like how much available light are you able to access when you're going to make this decision to call this yellow. So there's a lot of things going on for yellow, and usually for me, I'm hitting this around at a full capacity batch, and again, depending on what kind of bean it is, how dense it is, how it was processed. This is washed, so it's a lot easier to see what's yellow versus, say, natural that has sort of like colors to sort of deceive you into what is yellow. But this sort of looks kind of red to me now, and I'm not sure if it's because of the way it's been stored or something. But yeah, you would call this yellow. And this is probably, you're hitting this around maybe 4 or 5 minutes of the total time roast. Okay, so that's that. So after that, after you hit yellow, what I do is I increase the airflow because I want to start sort of managing the heat now. So during this time, I've been drying the beans out, and now I'm approaching this phase, which is now what we call Maillard. A lot of the chemical reactions and caramelization that takes place, and this is basically, it's an unnamed phase. It's a middle phase. It's the middle of the whole phase, and coffee industry has not had a consensus on this phase and what to name it. So we just like to call it middle, nameless, or Maillard phase. Those are the most common things that I see out there, and we're approaching here. So you start to see some of that chaff, see that like papery thing around it, start to come off. And in the machine that I roast with, this actually is separated very easily through. They have this cyclone thing that separates the chaff from the bean. Okay. Before, when I had a hot top, I had to manually, after I dropped these beans, I had to, shake them around, and I felt like Rafiki in The Lion King, just like, So this is so much easier to have a machine that does it for you. If you're doing lots of coffee, it's not such a big deal if you're only doing like 200 gram or something, but yeah. So you could see it start to go. And you can see kind of like the size. If we take a look back at the green, we still have some of these really small ones and some bigger ones. Some that look like little pea berries. Pea berries are like really small ones, and coffee cherries that only have one seed inside. So it's really interesting to see. So there's that. So now, as we're going through Maillard, we're still going through some more, taking on some more heat. The bean, or the seed, it's really a seed, but I'll just keep saying bean. The bean starts to expand. Whoop. It's starting to kind of like swell. There's some moisture and other particles and stuff inside this bean that start to swell, and it's kind of like a slow moving popcorn. It's like whoop, like that. And we're getting closer and closer to these approaching first crack. So I would say, if I'm looking at these are almost double or a third in size. But if I were to compare it to, say, these, they've really doubled in size. So upon first crack, meaning we're at that point in time in the roast where it's probably about 8 or 9 minutes in. And if I'm comparing from when it was raw to first crack, when they've expanded, this is probably our first crack stage, where the beans have, boom, it sounds like popcorn literally, and they expand in a sort of violent way, and they double in size almost. Now again, depending on the bean, they could get even bigger, like triple in size sometimes. I've seen like a big fat one, looks like a big old like, what do you call those? Corn puffs. There's a cereal. They look like a big fluffy corn puff. Yeah, so you could see the difference here. And right here, we're not dropping the coffee or releasing the coffee to be cooled yet. We're going to let this develop a little bit more. What I typically do for a light roast is about plus 2 minutes of first crack. So we'll have first crack at around 8 or 9 minutes, and then depending, right, we're checking the trier, we're checking the sight glass, see what it looks like, see if we like the look of it, see how the body has these little ridges. You see, like, so this is what you would kind of look for in a light roasted, bright, acidic coffee. Yeah, that's the good stuff. Okay, and if we, again, pour these out and compare. Oh, whoops. You can kind of see that. These broke in there, that's all right. See how many ridges are in it? If you were to look even closer, I have my macro on here, but I hope it's picking it up, but you compare that. Wow, it smells good. Cool. These are the first time I'm opening these, so. See this little thing, this little chaff, don't worry about this. This is, some of you maybe taking your roasts into more darker territory. So these are getting closer into, I'd say, second crack. I see some oil kind of seeping out here. If you see any oils on the surface of the bean, that is a darker roast. I don't think it's a very good sign, because that means you're releasing a lot of it means that the heat managed at the end of the roast, typically it was just not managed very well, meaning that it was just kind of left to its own accord. You know, there's no management of the heat. So with that being said, when we see oils on the surface of the bean, there's not a lot, it's like one, but it's just a sign of like unmanaged heat at the end of the roast into a second crack. What we're seeing is just some loss of flavor. Your coffee will stale a little bit quicker. Just, you know, it tends to, it's cooked faster, basically, if I can put it in lay terms. It's probably not correct, but to put it in lay terms, like, it's cooked faster, so it's gonna go staler faster. Okay, we take it to 8. Here's 8. You can see a lot more oils coming through, seeping through. We're getting into, you see that chaff that was kind of kept in the middle of the bean is also roasted all the way, kind of the same color as the bean. More oils coming through. The beans are getting smoother, not so many ridges. They're getting bigger because they've taken on more heat, right? They're swelling even more. Swelling, swelling, swelling. And here we're getting more sweeter notes. Sweeter, kind of more nuttier notes, something more on the sweeter side. And I'd say a little bit more flatter side as well. It's not going to be as bright. It's not going to be as juicy. It's going to have a lot more body here. Be a little bit more like creamy, velvety, more mouthfeel, heavier in the mouth. Now we're into 9 right here, the 9th one. Again, just getting even more swelled, even more oils, even more darker color. Whereas even the face of the bean, which is where that crack is like elevated. You know what I mean? It's not even flat anymore. These are, you know, if we compare it to the raw, these are like concave, right? Or how they're in. The face of the bean is like kind of dipped in. These are like now out. So it's a big difference there. Cool. And here we have the basically Vienna French roast, the top of the top, very oily, big fat beans, super swelled, lost a lot of nuance and flavor, depending on what sort of, little chip there, little explosion, see that? So a lot of heat, a little explosion here where it's like, if you ever bake something that doesn't have a means of like letting heat escape correctly, you'll have like an explosion, like that. So yeah, this one, this is the type of coffee that you'll find like, in my experience, been like coffee from Vietnam, a little bit lower grade of coffee where it's wet hulled, it's a different sort of processing. Not going to have a lot of nuance, very dark, designed to take on a lot of milk, I believe, and cream and sugar. You know, you need sort of a heavier, flatter base that's going to take on cream and sugar. So that's what this would be. Not my favorite thing to drink, but with this being said, there is a lot of variance within the dark realm, right? If we call this first crack, right here, number 7, okay? If we call that first crack, there's still a lot of things that we can do here. If this is unmanaged, I just wonder what we can do as a roaster to sort of manage it better and still keep some nuance and still keep some flavor. I'm really interested in that, and I want to see what we can do here. So yeah, that's what coffee goes through when it's going through the roaster, and all it takes is heat and time and air. And then of course your own knowledge and experience to make decisions and manipulate those 3 things. And it's not really even 3 things, it's actually a lot more things, but it's kind of like baking where, hey, it only took time and flour and water and salt, 4 things, to make this amazing loaf of bread. And that's what happens with, and there could be so many variants and nuance, like temperature of the air, your own, you know, cognizance of what's going on, your own strength to manipulate the dough, whatever, right? Like, there's so many little things that kind of happen. And that's what's super exciting about roasting, you know? So being able to find the nuance and define the nuance for yourself as a roaster, I think is really fun and exciting. So I hope you could see how much kind of like work and nuance and technicality and all these things that kind of make a cup of coffee that you drink every morning. Potentially, if you're drinking, you know, specialty coffee, the things that coffee goes through, and the things that people get themselves involved in and learn about and dive into to create the best coffees that they can create. And I think it's so cool. And I feel like the more that we can share as creators, like I'm still a newbie, but the more that I could share and help guide people to better coffee, like, it's a win-win-win-win-win. You know, there's no need to have this tribalism thing of like, I have the best machine, therefore I make the best coffee. It's really not the case. I remember when I first started roasting coffee, and I joined this like coffee roaster contest, and I had no idea what I was doing. I had barely gotten out my hot top like 2 weeks ago, 2 weeks prior. And then I joined the contest because I was like, cool, it's going to motivate me to just kind of learn how to roast, and I'll submit my coffee and see how it does. Of course, I didn't win anything, but the person who did win, she won with a popcorn convection type roaster, and out of all the home roasters that have Baymores and hot tops, well, I think I was the only one that had a hot top, but I had the best, I had quote unquote the best machine, but I didn't really know how to use it. The person with a popcorn popper that was like $30 or whatever a long time ago won the contest because she had the most complexity in her cup. And it just goes to show, like, it's not really about the machine, it's about what's going on in the cup. So it's something to always remember. I see sort of weird tribalism in the comments of some of my videos. Weird. I'm not offended at all. It's just weird. It's just like, hey, we're on the same team. We want people to have great coffee, right? I mean, we want people to appreciate what we love, which is coffee. And if more people appreciate and love coffee like we do, I think that we can secure a better future for everyone who's involved in coffee. And I think that is really important for the future of coffee, and for just better coffee all around for everybody from the farmer to the consumer. Okay, that was a lot. So I'll see you next time. A lot of updates coming up. It's over the weekend. I haven't heard back anything else from wholesales and designs and quotes and things like that. So I am kind of like getting antsy and getting very excited to see what our next steps are in terms of growing Black City. But I thank you for watching and joining on the journey. See you next time. Bye.